Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashish Gupta, and thank you, Tafi, for inviting me to your annual convention. You know, in most of the places that I normally speak at, I have always requested that do not put me after lunch or after tea, because normally there isn't any crowd. But today I'll add one more wish list. Do not put me after the kind of speakers that we had today, because it's very hard to beat the kind of content that they normally speak about. You know, you have to first undo the kind of magic that they have created, and then get on with this droll topic of strategy and business planning. The topic that we discussed at TAFE was beyond Madison Avenue and the implications to change. And what I will try and attempt to do is over the next 20 to 30 minutes, try and share with you my thoughts and my understanding on what's happening in two key stakeholders, which is the countries, which is India and Israel, and the other key stakeholder, which are the travel agents. And thereafter, what are the kind of thoughts or ideas that you would like to take away from that, and any implications on your business model and planning? Very quickly, so that we get this basic data out of the way, most of us need to know what tourism is, what is the industry that we are playing in. And it's a huge, ladies and gentlemen, it's a huge industry, almost $2 trillion in size. And over the next 10 years, it's estimated to grow by 50% almost to $3.2 trillion. And that's just the size of the tourism industry. The economic multiplier that the industry creates is absolutely unprecedented, almost 3.5 times. So for every $1 of output that the industry creates, almost 3.5 times is the economic output. So the global economy, almost 10% of that is impacted by tourism, which is almost $6.5 trillion as of today, going up to an estimated $10 trillion. And the same is true with jobs worldwide. Tourism employees directly almost 100 million employees worldwide. And that has a direct implication on the number of people who are impacted by tourism employment, which goes up to almost 300 million. This is going to grow up to 600 million over the next 8 to 9 years. So all in all, for countries, India and Israel both, and the implication of tourism as an industry is absolutely critical, vital for policymakers, the kind of decisions they take in terms of employment, as was just mentioned in terms of connectivity, visa, etc. A quick breakdown, the tourism industry is divided into 4 key segments. The export segment, that's $1.2 trillion, which is outbound, etc. It's supposed to go up by almost 100% to $2 trillion over the next 8 to 9 years. The leisure segment is almost $3.2 trillion, and it's going to go up by almost 60% to $5 trillion. The domestic segment, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely mind-boggling, $3 trillion, going up to $4.8 trillion, and corporate, $1 trillion, going up to $1.5 trillion. CapEx, $0.7 trillion get invested in tourism, which is going to double to $1.4 trillion. So as businessmen, ladies and gentlemen, as businessmen, either you play in any market or you invest in tourism in terms of CapEx, the industry has absolutely unlimited amount of potential. Let's get this out of the way. Having done that, now, what else? What is the implications for travel agents in the current context? And we saw this morning in terms of technology. We saw video presentations, and all of us know that there is something or the other which is happening, which is very perplexing. Let's try and put some big data around it and see what exactly is happening for travel intermediaries. The first key segment, the corporate travel managers, on a recent survey, 60% of corporate travel managers who plan corporates for internal companies say that they are looking at 3 things from travel agents. They're looking at travel agents to give them a constant solution for fare tracking and rebooking. They're looking at travel agents to help them constantly for efficiency enhancing mobile apps. And they're looking at their travel agent partners to give them predictive data for benchmarking and trend analysis to ensure that their cost structures keep on going down. And this is what almost all the companies now which are with implants in corporates are doing. Amadeus has come up with a solution, IFAO, which is also they're forward integrating and going directly to corporates with a solution which is exactly trying to do this. The next key trend which is happening, ladies and gentlemen, is mobile bookings. And we know, we all have seen slides and presentations, but what is the size? Most of the online travel agents today are seeing up to a 20 to 30% jump in mobile-based bookings. And what is the character of these bookings? These are 60% almost overnight travel bookings, which basically means that they are travelers who know exactly where they want to go. They're either business travelers or corporate travelers. They are rebooking primarily through their mobile app, and they essentially do not require a travel agent support except for the travel agent giving him the best deal. MICE, a very, very critical segment. A segment which is still untouched by a lot of travel technology, where a lot of personalization support is required. One of the largest travel companies in the world estimates that it helps its MICE clients save up to $700 million just in terms of booking and travel planning through their agency. 20% on an average is the amount of spend that you can actually help save your corporate clients if you help them plan and if you help them book correctly. That's the kind of opportunity the MICE segment has, provided one focuses on it correctly. There's this huge trend on listing of properties, and there's this rush of almost every agency, be it online, offline, be it influencer, in impaneling suppliers. And here are quick numbers. TripAdvisor and Trivago, which is the meta search engine for Expedia, they have around 0.7 million hotel properties listed on this site. Expedia, after almost 19 years of operation, still has just around 0.4 million that they have deals with. Ladies and gentlemen, the potential is estimated to be up to 1 million properties that can get empaneled as suppliers. And that's the potential that everyone is trying to hit and reach. The industry is huge, and everyone says that there's so much competition, and yes, there is a lot of competition. What is that number of competition that we are looking at? 0.15 million travel agents are competing with and among each other. 0.15 million. And here is an interesting fact. Out of this $1.2 trillion, even if you just take exports, the top 10 players, if you take the top 10 players online and offline and club their revenues together, do not account for more than 8 to 10% of the global revenue. That's the essence of play that is left in the industry. That's the essence of competitiveness that you can, a sense of market that you can capture, provided you are competitive, provided you have planned your business model right, provided you have your market segmentation done correctly. Integration is one key thing that we see is happening. Be it Thomas Cook, which is apart from its own travel operations, is also flying its own planes. You have Carlson, which also has hotels and travel segmentation. You have the local partners of global agencies like Bird, Interglobe, which are across the complete travel and hospitality and airline supplier base. That's one key trend which is happening, ladies and gentlemen. Forward and backward integration of travel suppliers who are ensuring that they capture as much of the value chain that they can. Forward integration is one key thing that is very predominant in the travel industry. We saw it with Sabra, which got Travelocity. We saw it with Amadeus, which is now forward integrating as an OTA. Already their OTA, Opodo, is the second largest in Europe in terms of air bookings. You have Roomkey.com. Most of the hotel companies, I think there's 6 hotel companies which have come together to form Roomkey.com. Expedia, which formed TripAdvisor, and now Expedia is forward integrating with instant bookings through their own engine. Ladies and gentlemen, all the suppliers that you've been working with are forward integrating, be those travel intermediaries, be those airline suppliers, be those hotel suppliers. It's a very, very, very real trend. Distress inventory, it's a very big segment. And if one tracks the investor declarations of either Expedia or Priceline, Expedia through its Hotwire and Priceline through the Express Deals, they believe distress inventory is very big segment that you can work in. And distress inventory, as I'm sure all of you are aware, is inventory which is not getting sold and which can get sold through a concerted effort by the agents at a price that they bid on. It's a phenomenal opportunity, and it's a very big market because of a supply-demand mismatch for certain properties. Google is the biggest player worldwide. Nobody can deny that fact in almost every industry. The key trend which is happening, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very frightening trend. They are changing the algorithm constantly. So every time there's a search which goes onto Google, the search is now coming up only with those prices or with those agencies or with those deals which have the best recognition. Basically, the risk of not being visible to anyone who's trying to search for you is getting increasingly higher. Meta competition, we all know that, and it's a very real threat, very real threat, offline to online, online now to meta search. Both the Google Hotel or the Google Air or the Trivago, they are going to become the primary. Let's not have any doubt about it. In the online search space, they are going to become the primary search drivers, and they are going to become the marketing distribution arms for anyone who has got the best deals on offer. Loyalty programs, a very real thing. Be it Orbitz with its Orbux program, or the Elong with its Elong program. Welcome to Hotels.com, which already has empaneled 15 million travel bookers and customers. Travel booking loyalty programs is a very real thing, very important thing, and a very big differentiator for companies in their business modeling and planning. OTA duopoly. Recently, I was reading the comments by the Expedia CEO, and he said, there is not going to be another OTA. We have Expedia, we have Priceline, and Orbitz is gone. Last week, they made an acquisition for Orbitz. Orbitz is gone. It took 19 years to make them put up Expedia. And do you know, in the first 5 years of their operations, Microsoft spent $100 million, 1994 to 1999. When Expedia was not listed, $100 million only in product development and marketing to get a revenue of only $40 million. That's the sense of investment which went into creation of Expedia. And I'm mentioning Expedia because it was not set up by travel professionals. It was set up by a technology giant, what we see Google doing today, what Microsoft did. But the point is, the kind of investment which has gone into making such kind of a travel business is if you index it, it's going to be enormous. So you're not looking at any other players, you're looking at Expedia and Priceline. And I'll share with you one more fact, we'll just come to it. And before we do that, the OTA so the implication is the OTA and the offline travel agent partnership is a very real thing. It can't be wished away. It is something that one has to embrace and collaborate with, be the Orbitz Partner Network, which is very popular worldwide. And one of the primary reasons why Orbitz got acquired last week, or the intention to get acquired, the Expedia Travel Affiliate Program, they are constantly ramping up travel agent partners, giving them assured commissions and guarantees wherever possible. So it's a very real thing, the partnership between online and offline, either in terms of acquisition or in terms of informal or structured alliances. Real-time capacity matching, and while Uber in India is known for some other reasons, but the whole investment by Google in Uber, $250 million, is because Google realizes the importance of real-time supply-demand matching, which was a conventional role of travel agents, giving information and ensuring supply and demand get matched. And that's a very real thing which is happening, ladies and gentlemen. And today we have Uber, or we have so many other sites, but the trend to matching supply and demand and the investment by big players in that is a very real thing which is happening, which is going to be a very big threat to travel intermediaries. Similar technology platform. Now, this is very interesting. You know, the Altia, for example, if you take the Altia platform by Amadeus, and 2/3 of Star Alliance members already use the Altia platform. 3/4 of SkyTeam Alliance partners, airlines, already use the Altia platform. And I'm not advocating about Amadeus. I'm telling you a trend. 1/2 of oneworld airlines already use the Altia platform. So what is the implication? Implication is that the next time you're dealing with an airline, they already have predefined cost structures, predefined pricing and commission structures, predefined business practices. So it will be very difficult to negotiate with one airline or play off airlines against one another, because over a couple of years, they're all going to come on a very similar platform, be it by Amadeus, or be it by IBM, or by HP. I missed out on one point, and I missed out on one point, which is, you know, the combined cash flow between, if you just take 2-3 players, Expedia, Priceline, and Amadeus, the combined cash flow is $2 billion annually, free cash flow. Ladies and gentlemen, free cash flow, which is where they are going to acquire companies left, right, and center. And it's a good thing as well. If you have a good business model, you get acquired. It's a bad thing because obviously there's competition getting eaten up. But that's why you see all names dissipating. Kayak, Travelocity, Orbitz, you see all that big names disappearing, and that's the reason. And that's not going to stop because these companies have got massive cash flows. Make no doubt about it that these companies are going to come approaching for those business models which are good business models. Cross-sell. Now, this is a very interesting thing, and this is the real thing for a travel agency, which is leveraging the PNRs. There are, I forget the numbers, the real acquisition driver behind Orbitz today, last week, one was a travel program, another one was the number of PNRs that they have, which do not or have not yet been cross-sold for hotels and other bookings, hotels, cars, experiences, events, and other destinations. This is the biggest driver today, and even all the online agencies, even Amadeus recognizes, for example, Expedia says we have 1% of the global airline market share, and that is a limit that we are looking at. We're looking at converting all of them, not only enhancing our market share, but also converting them into non-airline PNRs as well. So that's the sense of the business opportunity that one can look at, and obviously one has to approach it in a very systematic manner. Revenue model, for years we are always talking about commission and non-commission based business model, revenue change, but let me tell you, in 1999, and I looked at the filings of Expedia just before coming in, 1999, when they made the threat perception, which you have to declare to investors, they said the commission structure has come down from 13 to 9 to 8 to 5 to 3. And we do not know where it's going to stop, and there's a probability that we are going to be in a zero commission basis. So for us, we either have to be aggregators or we have to be customer service providers. That was in 1999. As late as 2010, when Amadeus got listed, it is exactly the same thing. The biggest risk perception, they are saying that our biggest risk perception is all our airline suppliers going directly to customers. And we do not have commission-based business at all. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very real threat. We all talk about it, we know about it, but it's a very, very real threat. There is no going back to the old model. Mobile penetration, and as the Deputy Director General from Israel just now mentioned, China and India, very right, absolutely right. Countries which have the biggest growing mobile penetration, which is China and India, are going to become the biggest source markets and the biggest travel markets for anyone, be it country or be it businesses. Now, and very interestingly, yesterday I was reading in the Wall Street Journal, China has a maximum trade advantage vis-a-vis goods, against other countries. So they have $4 trillion for FDI reserves. But in services, they have a deficit. $35 billion of deficit, which is coming from tourism. Chinese are spending more abroad. And the same, I guess, is true for India, where more people are going outside than coming in. So these are real markets, and the implication is that with more mobile penetration, you will have to have target people with more mobile apps, and we'll just come to that very, very, very quickly. And very interesting, as to another key trend which is emerging, and I do not know where this will go, but travel research by companies coming together. So there's this Welcome City Incubator, which has just been founded in France between Carlson, Amadeus, City of Paris, and Air France. They are trying to discover new ways in how people travel and the implications on travel agents. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the trends that, and these are not all the trends, but these are some of the trends which are happening in technology. And what is the implication of all of these trends? Implication of all of these trends, over the next 5 minutes, we'll discuss for travel agents. The implication on the business model is very clear. You have to raise the entry barriers for other players. You have to raise the entry barriers to compete better vis-a-vis other players. How do you do that? And there could be multiple solutions, but these are just top of the hat solutions that I could think of from the trends which are emerging. And the first key thing is ensure that your focus on your corporate travel segment is absolutely impeccable. 24/7 customer account management. You are their BFF, best friends forever. At any point in time, whenever their people are traveling, you need to ensure that you're always there and giving them the best solution. Apps to go. You need to have your own apps. Every morning when the way people read newspapers, the same way apps are becoming the biggest driver. And we missed out on one point there. But apps are becoming more powerful than mobile-based bookings, mobile-based web bookings. And that is the biggest driver today for all deals which are happening. As of yesterday, I understand Priceline concluded 2,000 deals just for closing their apps. Deals to make their app more attractive. Ladies and gentlemen, make no doubt about it, if you do not have apps over the next coming business seasons with your travel, with your customers, and with your, be those business segment or be those leisure segment, you do tend to lose out on some opportunity which others can capitalize upon. Mice catch the mice. You have to catch the mice. You have to ensure that you have the best solutions available in terms of supply diversity, in terms of pricing, and in terms of ensuring, and we saw that number, 20% is the amount of profit that you can actually convert. So you have the opportunity to convert cost centers to profit centers with customers. There are 21,000 conventions in the world, 10,000 events, and 7,000 meeting planners. That's the sense of the opportunity that you can actually look at. And I'm sure within your own market segments, you have probably a reducible market size. Horizontal alliances. We saw this trend where Google is doing whatever it is doing. We saw the trend where meta search is becoming very important. You need to enhance your bargaining power. You need to enhance your size. One way to do that is becoming bigger. The other way to do that is getting into alliances. And you need to look at alliances very positively. By geography, by customer segment, by supplier base. The more alliances you get into, which are like-minded companies, you enhance your bargaining capacity, and therefore your reach on an online search or on a meta search, thereby ensuring that you become a bigger brand and a bigger player to compete with and to reckon with. Integration. I think everyone is talking about forward integrating into travel or tour operations, and it's not an easy business also. But yes, integration is a very real thing. You backward integrate, become a supplier of sorts, car or hotels or whatever, or you forward integrate. And it's a strategic move. Wherever you get an opportunity and you believe there is a business value there, look at getting into integration as soon as possible. Predictive sale of portfolio. Now, this is very important. Moving from, as His Excellency the Ambassador said this morning, and all of you are aware of this, travel philosopher, travel guide, and what does it mean? The conventional role of the agent is finished. And if you can advise and upsell and cross-sell to your customers an interesting, varied list of experiences and hotels and cars and experiences, you have got the customer for life. You've got the customer because he's going to come back to you for more. So you have to keep on offering him more. And you have to predict as the tools are becoming predictive. We see online, all our tools are becoming intuitive. And as this morning, gentleman from Israel, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name. He said that the Israel Prime Minister, former Israel Prime Minister, spoke about the brain power. That's exactly what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest thing is predictive intelligence, which is shaping the way all the internet-based and predictive and all the online business is going to happen. So you need to become predictive as well. Predict what your customers can want and try and offer them proactively. Distress inventory. Now, if you have an opportunity in any of the key source markets, obviously you have to invest time and money in it, but try and identify supply which has distress inventory value. Underwrite it. If possible, obviously it has a financial implication, but that's how you also then backward integrate. Without owning the supply, you own a part of the right to sell the supply. You have an option to sell, or a right to sell. And that has immense opportunity as most of these other players are discovering. This acquire or divest. Business is run on passion, but at some point you have to dispassionately view business. So if you have an opportunity to divest or acquire complementary skills, or let's say acquire complementary markets, complementary skill sets, complementary technologies, acquire. If you see a 10-year vision or a 10-year horizon, if you have the opportunity to divest, and if you have an attractive business model in terms of your client base, in terms of your skill sets, ladies and gentlemen, the value of money today is far more than the value of uncertain money tomorrow. Dispassionately view your business, and look, if you have to exit it, you can exit it. Crisis management. We all saw what happened. I think crisis management is a very big opportunity. 19th to the 20th to the 22nd, what some of the office bearers did in Delhi by managing the crisis with Turkish Airlines. I think that's a very, very fantastic opportunity, fantastic case study, both pluses and minuses. But it's a very, very big opportunity of how a travel agent needs to become the single point of fare retracking, fare rebooking. And I would believe these are the 6 Fs that I was thinking of. How can you become more flexible? How can you become fast? How can you become friendly? How can you ensure that during the time of crisis you have fare solutions, different flight options, and mostly a fantastic experience? Most of us did not have a fantastic experience, but the point is that there is an opportunity. There was an opportunity for Turkish Airlines, which I think they missed, and there's an opportunity for travel agents alike. Loyalty programs. If you haven't got loyalty programs for all your stakeholders, bookers or customers or suppliers, do that now. And make your loyalty programs as attractive as you can in terms of multiple suppliers or multiple financial and non-financial parameters. Finally, I think in terms of last 2 points for travel intermediaries, and I think there are 2 key models which are emerging. One is, whose agent are you? Are you the agent of the supplier? Which is, are you consolidation driven? Or are you an agent of the customer? So are you segment driven? So I think back home, you need to do your own business planning very important, critically. Whose agent are we? What's our business model going to be? Are we going to get into volume driven, or are we going to do differentiation and segment driven? I think that's very important. So that will give confidence to all your internal communication, that will give confidence to your revenue mix, and that will ensure that you speak the right language to the right stakeholders. And finally, do not at any point in time compromise on the key hygiene factors and support factors, which is your succession planning, management planning and control systems, your cash flow, and your org structure. I think the business model is very important, but the hygiene factors of maintaining your business structure is absolutely critical. Those were some of the thoughts I had for travel agents and intermediaries, and now let me come to the next. Okay, so there was one more slide I had, and I think the role of TAFE is very critical. What we see in UK and US, what the travel agent federations are doing, I think the same probably TAFE is doing a bit of it, but a lot more can be done in terms of, can TAFE look at creating distribution alliances for travel agents, which are its members? Can it look at creating better branding within the domestic markets? For example, in UK, the Travel Agent Federation is branding travel agents, saying, trust your local travel agent. And maybe that's something TAFE can do, or work closely with consumers across the country and make them trust the TAFE travel agent. Help them create apps. I understand you have already an app for this. Help them create apps which are more technology savvy, which helps them get more business, and lots more. But primarily help your members become more business planning savvy and become capable of handling complexity. Let me move on to the next segment and the last segment of my conversation with you. And this is for the other stakeholders that we have today, which is the 2 countries, India and Israel. You know, for Israel, the top 5 countries, and I believe these are the top 5 countries, are USA, Russia, UK, France, and Germany. And there is no doubt in our mind that these are the top important countries for us in India as well. But we love them. We love these countries. We love business from them. But do these countries love us? Are we important to them as India and Israel? Are we important to these markets? Let's have a quick look at that. For USA, the top 10 markets are Italy, UK, Caribbean, France, Australia, Germany, Greece, Spain, Eastern Europe, New Zealand. No Israel, no India. For Russia, the top 10 markets are Italy, France, Greece, Spain, Thailand, Germany, Scandinavia, North Africa, UAE, and number 10 is India. Thank you, Russia. Thank you very much. Sorry, no Israel. France, the top 10 markets are Canada, USA, Australia, Mauritius, Thailand, Vietnam, Brazil, New Zealand, Mexico, Japan. No Israel, no India. Germany, the top 10 markets are the markets that they prefer to go to. USA, Australia, Caribbean, Canada, New Zealand, Thailand, Hawaii, South Africa, Brazil, Mauritius. And for UK, the top 10 destinations that they prefer to go to are USA, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Caribbean, Thailand, Mexico, South Africa, Hong Kong, Hawaii. Not even for UK, we are the top 10 markets. There could be multiple reasons, but from the research that we tracked, why? For USA, the top 5 reasons which they look for in a in a good market, the first reason, 50% of the Americans prefer safety in the destination. Then they look at attractions, they look at value for money, cuisine, friendly, natural beauty, and quality hotels. For Russia, 46% of the travelers prefer safety in the destination. And obviously attractions, they want beaches, they want good cuisine, they want a lot of wildlife, they want ease of visa and friendliness. And I'm happy Israel must have been tracking this, which is why they've introduced, I believe, the visa, non-visa for Russians. France, the most important parameters are natural beauty, 60%. For them, safety is not as critical. Value for money, very important. Safety, 40% of them prefer safety. You need to be friendly, you need to have heritage, good cuisine, and you need to have coastal zones. For Germany, 50% of the travelers want value for money. They want safety, 48%, then the rest, the other reasons are the top. These are the top reasons, and there are other reasons. But cuisine, natural beauty, heritage, quality accommodation, non-stop connectivity. And finally, for UK, 53% prefer safety, good attractions, cuisine, value for money, friendly, natural beauty, accommodation, good accommodation options, and connectivity. These are the reasons that they prefer the markets that they prefer. And before we get into solutioning for India and Israel, let's also look at one more parameter, one more trend. You know, World Economic Forum, which most of us love to go to or attend, in their 2013 Economic Competitiveness Index of Tourism of 144 countries, or was it 148? I think 144 countries. India was ranked 65th in the lower order. On the three, there were multiple parameters. The three top parameters were natural and human assets. We were ranked as 21 best in the world, saying we are 21 best in the world in terms of our natural assets. Tourism and travel as a priority focus of the government, we were ranked 110th low. 110th low in the world. And business environment and infrastructure, we were ranked 67th in the world. So despite the fact that we had the 20th best natural assets and human quality, because of the lack of focus of tourism by the government, and because of lack of infrastructure, our ranking got pulled down to 65. Let's look at Israel, and I'm sure there are people from Israel as well. 53, congratulations, you are much better than India, and no doubt, or even if you look proportionately, we get 7 million, you get 3.5 million. And the fact that we are a huge country. So obviously you're doing a lot of things right. In terms of natural and human assets, it's amazing. You know, this morning the speaker said we are a small country, we have limited, and that's what it reflects, 71. They are ranked lower, 71 in terms of natural assets. But yet, because of the focus of travel and tourism, policy focus by the government, which is 36th in the world, best in the world, and business environment, and we see this huge, beautiful business environment and infrastructure around us. 51, they have their rankings gone up to 53. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of things to be learned, and just to sum up, what could be the agenda for change beyond Madison Square for India and Israel? Obviously, if you look at those parameters of the source markets preference and the macro competitiveness parameters, safety is the first and foremost important thing. Obviously, Israel has a huge inherent situation, but the perception of safety and the reality of safety both have to be addressed in Israel and as well as in India. Also, the key thing could be identifying spots which are safer and marketing those spots. And obviously in India, we are doing so much for women now, but the fact is, India, fortunately, does not have the issues which Israel has. But yet, we are considered to be a destination that we are in. So safety has to be one key issue for the government, and we all know what our Indian government is trying to do at the state or central level. But I'm sure Israel is, for Israel, what could possibly be done is that you could communicate more the safer destinations that you have to the source markets that you want to target, even for Indians, because for people who do not know Israel beyond the news channels, for them it's still considered to be a country which is a country in a war zone. But the moment you enter, it's amazing. So visa regime, we know what's happened it's happening in India, and all the members associations of faith and all of us have worked together for e-visa. We know where we stand today. Fortunately, in the next budget, 28th February, it will get announced. I think we're looking at more countries getting added. I want to share with you the power of e-visa, and I think I have 5 more minutes if I can take, Pradeep. So 5 more minutes, okay. You know, because of this crisis, 19th, when I couldn't land, so I told Turkish Airlines, just get me to Istanbul, you know, and I'll try and manage. So they said, if you have a US visa, you can get into Istanbul. But finally, I wanted to come here. You know, I So I stood the whole night outside the Delhi airport on the 20th morning. 19th I stood for 4 hours, 20th I stood for 7 hours. And 7 o'clock in the morning, they gave me the ticket to Istanbul. So I landed in Istanbul, and my bags, since I was still in Istanbul, my bags were outside the passport control. So I took the e-visa. It took me 1 minute to get the e-visa, obviously $50, but 1 minute to get the e-visa. Because I had the US visa, 10-year valid US visa, I got the e-visa. But in those 2.5 days that I spent in Istanbul, I spent $1,200. So the point I'm making is that e-visa can create impulse purchase, and it's a huge, huge stimulus for the local economy. People may, even if they land by accident or by design or by default, it's a very big stimulus, and we're very happy that the Indian government, the previous government, which decided to do it, the Planning Commission and all the bodies, we all worked together very hard. 14 February, they did it, they declared it, but the new government, and I must tell you this, we had this pre-budget session with Mr. Jaitley on the 6th of January, and I told him, I said, Mr. Jaitley, I think on the 10th of July last year, you introduced the e-visa, and on 27th of November, you implemented it. I think this is the fastest decision by the Indian government on something as critical as this, and he was very happy. So we spent around 40 minutes, there were around 15 people for the pre-budget, but we spent 40 minutes on tourism. So there is e-visa, obviously Israel has to, and so for India, has to look at visa and the paper visa thing, but it's a very important thing. Flight connectivity, and obviously Israel knows what needs to be done for India. I must share with you, on 22nd of February, we had this, 22nd of January, we had this first time ever meeting with 60 airlines, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Civil Aviation, and Faith, all the member associations of Faith, 60 airlines, 1 2-hour meeting, and all of them shared their issues, and we'll discuss an agenda for the next meeting. But the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at bilaterals very, very critically. We're looking at open sky becoming more liberalized, not just at Air India, but with the other airlines. And other things with aviation, what we're also looking at is, I must share with you these 2 or 3 things that we have asked the government, requested the government to do, and we're happy that the aviation industry now has taken it up. One is, the biggest issue in India is VAT domestically. We've asked the central government to ask the state governments to put a VAT cap on ATF at 5%. But then how do states get their revenue? So we've asked the central government, Mr. Jaitley, and we don't know whether he'll do it or not, but we've asked him, to give them, to create a central stabilization fund for the states. So let the states cap it at 5%. If they lose revenue because of, so many more flights don't come in, then let the state center compensate. So that's one thing. The second thing is, between the states, for example, a lot of states, say if you can't go from Jaipur to Jodhpur, I believe, or Jaipur to Jaisalmer, I might be getting that wrong. You can travel from Delhi to Jaipur, Delhi to Jodhpur, but you can't travel within that. So a lot of states have that problem. You can't travel within the state to the top 5 destinations, because who will operate the flight? But, the cost is really that incremental marginal cost. So we asked the center to again set up a underwriting fund for the states, that wherever there's an incremental cost of flying, if that is not covered by the seats, the center needs to compensate the states. Hopefully, so these are 3 or 4 things, and there's one more thing, which is to ensure that we actually become a 365-day destination. I'm sorry if the Israelis are missing out on this point, but we're just sharing the policy suggestion that we are working on, to make India a genuinely 365 destination. We have multiple airstrips, both military and government, which are dormant, lying in hill stations. They need to get activated. So this whole issue of ensuring that the summer season becomes more active, we're asking the government to unlock those strips, even at least for small fixed-wing aircrafts. So these are some of the 4 things that on aviation that we are discussing with the government, and as it goes with the government, you discuss and then you hope for something to happen, but hopefully something will happen. Internal connectivity, we have seen in Israel what fantastic internal connectivity they have. From Tel Aviv airport, it took, 40 minutes to come to Jerusalem. Internal connectivity in India, we are incredible India, but in India, but every toll gate you cross, it's India of many Indias. So we are requesting the government to look at 3 things, and number 1 is e-toll payment for all travel business providers, that single point that they can make all e-toll payment. The second is a dedicated coding for the travel trade cars, so that they get a free flow through all all tolls. Third is a national tourism permit, like the truckers have. They have a national tourism permit which should be made applicable to travel agents who operate their own cars. So these are the three things that we always looking at. Obviously, the other thing, FATE has these multiple strategy sessions with each state. So wherever we go to a state, we ask them to identify the actual bottleneck on the national highways. So whichever bottlenecks we are getting, we are giving them to the NHAI and asking them to address that. I'm sorry, just 2 more minutes, I will take. Thanks. I thought I can share that. So I'll quickly cut down one more slide. We saw one key thing, value for money in almost all source markets. Now in India, and I must share with you this, the GST regime is coming. And also please, all of you through your own offices need to follow this up. The GST regime is coming. Now please, this is very important. The value for money equation, let me get the number right. Worldwide, the average per tourist who comes into India, we are, I believe, $2,800 per tourist. It's not a good thing. $2,800 per tourist. It's because a lot of that component goes into taxes. Switzerland is $2,400. America, I think, is $700. China, I think, is $1,400. We are losing out because we are an expensive destination vis-a-vis the value that we give. We saw the Israel tourism videos. How much of that value do we actually give? So we are losing out, and a lot of that is because of our indirect taxation. In India, the indirect taxation rate is almost 20 to 30% for tourism. And that's where, ladies and gentlemen, that's where the biggest game changer for tourism is going to happen. And all of you need to follow through your friends and policymakers, because the GST Constitutional Committee is going to be set up now. There are two slabs, the lowest slab and the highest slab. We need to come in the lowest slab, which is 6 to 8%. We've already given that recommendation to all the people which matter in the government. But for your own reference, and please, you can feel free to contact me for any further clarification on this, 6 to 8% is what we need to be classified as in the GST regime. Because there's a central GST, then the state will apply their own 6%. So then our indirect taxation rate will come down from 20 to 12%. And look at this, all the OECD countries and most of the countries in the world, when they set up the GST regime, do you know what they did? If the standard GST rate was 20%, for tourism, they brought it down to 10%. And that's the global norm. Tourism indirect taxation rate, ladies and gentlemen, is half the indirect taxation rate of the country. Whereas in India, I am hazarding a guess that the indirect taxation rate in tourism is double the indirect taxation rate for other. So if its VAT rate is 12%, the indirect taxation rate for Indian tourism is 20 to 30%. That's what needs to be corrected. Please do follow it up, because this is a window of opportunity we have. If you miss this on, we will always remain an expensive or a non-value for money destination. I think Israel has no taxation on tourism. That's what I remember. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Israel has zero tax on tourism. Amazing. And I think the GST rate is 6% or something. They have zero tax on tourism. I might be wrong. Okay, so the other thing on value for money, and I'll quickly skip this, but the thing is, we are working with the government to try and ensure state governments, whenever we have the state sessions, is to ensure that all commercial rates which are applied on tourism and hospitality properties needs to come to industrial rates. There's a huge difference. And everyone has declared them as an industry, but they just need to convert them to industrial tariffs. So these 2 or 3 things, and there are multiple other points as well, will hopefully bring down the indirect tax, the expensiveness of the Indian destinations, and hopefully make us a more value for money destination. So if you take the e-visa impact and the value for money thing, the estimate is that the tourism alone will grow by 40% just by giving us better e-visas and by introducing our value for money, reducing our taxation. 40% just latent demand, which is 7 million, you calculate that by 10 to 12 million just by zero effort, which is people who are waiting on the sidelines to come into the country. And I'll skip the rest, but quickly on one thing. Yesterday, a taxi driver who brought us in, and yesterday also the Director General, both spoke the same thing. They said, Israel has everything. Sea, sun, sand. And the interesting part, I was almost laughing. Every minister we meet of every state of India says the same thing. India, our state is everything. It might not have a desert or might not have a sea, but we have everything. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, do we convert that everything to a business advantage? We do not. And that's where the opportunities. And Australia has identified 55 travel experiences which are the national travel experiences of Australia. They want their people, they want their customers to keep on coming back, coming back, coming back. Across the provinces, across the federal government, they have identified national 55 travel experiences. We need to do that. We need to leverage our 21 ranking and put tourism on a priority with all our efforts and leverage and make us a never-ending destination to come to. Israel also wants that, but India has all the reasons to do that. We have everything, genuinely everything to do that. Okay, I'll skip the rest of the points on accommodation and some of the other initiatives that you're working in the interest of time. So just closing on this, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very, very tough environment. There is no doubt about it. I think we are all here for a good time, but the environment is absolutely tough. But the good thing, not a good thing, but the fact is it's not just for us. You take books, you take small retailers, you take television channels, you take production factories. The company which makes the Apples and the Samsung, which is Foxconn, I don't know if you're aware, it's an $80 billion company, larger than these companies, has just laid off 1 lakh people because they're getting to robotics. The same equipment, the same iPad or the same Samsung Galaxy you use is now going to be made by robots. So technology is changing everything, everything technology is changing. I must share this experience with you. My brother-in-law and last year, 14 February, I was in New York with my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, both were in Microsoft. I said, listen, this is what's going to happen to Microsoft. The Microsoft's core product, which is Office, which is your Office enterprise system, will get lesser sold because you're selling Office 365, which is an internet solution. And why are you selling Office 365? Because Google is selling Google Docs at a subsidized price. And why are they selling Google Docs? Because they want everyone to come to internet. For Google, the only reason that they're getting into any business on mobile or on travel or on laptop is they want everyone to come to internet because $70 billion they get only from advertising. And my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law laughed. And 2 months later, my sister-in-law joined Facebook and my brother-in-law joined Google. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very real thing. Technology is changing our lives. It's not the only thing that and we have to adapt to it. But it's not the only thing. We have to approach it with a very sound concept, a very strong business plan. We have to ensure that our conceptualization is right, our communication to our stakeholders is right, our control of our business plan is right, and we need to change our business planning and our actions as fast as we can. Namaste, Shalom, and as President Obama said last month at Shreveport, Jai Hind. Namaste.
Thank you. Mr. Gupta, we'll request you to stay back, and I'm going to request Mr. Teddy Thomas, the National Managing Committee member, to please join us up on stage to please do the honors. And let me quickly remind you, it's time now that we'll announce the winners. So we'll request you not to move out of the hall because the winner has to be present as the name will be announced. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to please put your hands together for Mr. Ashish Gupta. Thank you, Mr. Gupta, and thank you, Mr. Teddy Thomas, for doing the honors. I request you to draw your